middle of the night, I awoke with a severe migraine. I'd experienced occasional migraines since I was a teenager, but this particular migraine was extremely painful, and I should have sought treatment at the emergency room. However, since I had very young children at the time, I didn't want to wake them or my husband, so I attempted to treat myself. I took my prescription migraine medication, but it did not provide any relief from the pain. Instead of waiting an hour before taking the second dose as the instructions advised, I waited 20 minutes and took the second dose. I also took 2 over-the-counter pills for migraine. I have always been very sensitive to medications, but at the time I did not consider this. I was only focused on relieving the intense pain. After taking the medications, I became very sleepy and returned to bed. When I drifted off to sleep, I would awaken by gasping for breath. I quickly realized that when I drifted off to sleep, I stopped breathing. I was fearful I would fall asleep and die. I said a very simple prayer. Dear God, please don't let me die. I want to be a mother and a wife. As I said the prayer, I doubted God would hear me. At that time in my life, I felt insignificant. I was not sure God existed, and if He did, I didn't think He would know me, but I was about to be proven wrong. Immediately after praying, I felt a presence come over my bed. I was lying on my back with my eyes closed, but I could sense a shadow had been cast as something moved over my body and then stood next to my bed. As soon as I felt the presence, I was frightened and I heard a Bible verse in my mind. An angel of the Lord stood by them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. I realized I had received the Bible verse telepathically, and an angel had arrived to help me. Then it felt as if the angel slipped his hand directly into my stomach. I felt a sensation unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Static was moving in my stomach and throughout my torso. I also saw in my mind's eye a vision of black and white static, as like on a TV set without reception. At the same time, I felt my deceased father's presence, and I could hear him speaking into my right ear. He repeatedly said, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay." As the angel stood to my left and my father spoke to me from my right, a very large, powerful presence hovered over the length of my body. When I noticed the large presence, my inner vision was changed to that of a crystal blue waterfall. The water was sparkling clear and the most beautiful blue I have ever seen. As I marveled at the sight of the water, the static sensation in my torso dissipated and was replaced with a sensation of liquid love rushing into my heart. The love was so pure and overwhelming that I immediately began to weep. The liquid love flowed through my heart and filled up my chest cavity to the point that I could not expand my lungs to inhale. I was aware of having difficulty breathing, but it did not concern me. I was so blissed out from the love that nothing else mattered. I had the realization of, this must be God. It was so large, infinite, and powerful that I just knew it could have no other name than God. Once I realized I was in the presence of God, my next thought was, oh no, God is going to judge me for taking too much medication. I waited for the judgment. It did not come. I moved into the flow of God, searching for His judgment. No judgment was there, not a speck, only pure, adoring love was in the infinite flow of God. At this point, I lost awareness of my body. I did not recall I was a mother, wife, daughter, friend. I had no recollection of life on earth. I merged into an infinite presence that utterly and completely adored me. God did not speak words to me. The love said it all. I felt as if I was an awareness, a being without a name or identity, and I was expanding to the size of the cosmos. I was home. I realized home was where I wanted to remain forever, and in my blissed out state, it took all the energy I could muster to telepathically communicate, "Take me." With these 2 words, I was attempting to communicate that I wanted to remain in the pure love forever. As my presence continued to expand in a state of bliss, It felt as if I was nearing a point where I would explode into a billion atoms and forever be with God. I mentally prepared myself for the explosion and gladly welcomed it. At the very last millisecond before the explosion of my being and my total emergence into infinity, God pulled me out of heaven, and I landed with a shocking jolt into my body. I lay in my bed, dazed and confused. My hair and pillow were soaked from the tears I had cried as the love consumed my heart and spirit. I have no idea how long I was with God, but when I returned to my body, it was completely healed. The medication had been removed. I was breathing normally. I was not lethargic, and my head felt normal. Usually after having a migraine, my head would be very sore to the point that brushing my hair would be unbearable. Now I could push against my skull and feel no pain or soreness. I attempted to process what had just happened. I knew that I had experienced something beyond any earthly experience I'd ever had. I told myself that I would allow myself to believe I had experienced a miracle if when I awoke in the morning, I remained pain-free. Eventually I fell asleep, and when I awoke in the morning, my body had no after effects of a migraine or medication. I felt wonderful. I remember standing at the mirror, brushing my hair, and trying to accept all that had occurred. My best friend called me and I told her I had experienced a miracle the night before. Fortunately, she believed me and she advised me to go to the bookstore to find a book about healing. I did as she suggested, and as I was walking into the bookstore, I realized I had no idea where to find a book that would help me. Then an image appeared in my mind. It was a poster of the cast of the TV show, Touched by an Angel. I had never watched the TV show, but I decided to go to the section of the bookstore where there were books about angels. I grabbed some books which caught my eye, and I randomly opened one of the books. The first paragraph I read was about a woman who experienced a healing from an angel. She described feeling static in her body as she was being healed. I was shocked. How had I walked into the bookstore and opened a book that described what I had experienced the night before? My mind was blown. It was too much to process. I spent the next few days reliving the experiences in my mind. After a few days, I accepted I had been touched by an angel, comforted by my earthly Father in heaven, held in the infinite arms of God, and miraculously healed. My life would never be the same again.